Anyways, how's it going today? Good answer. But back to the scrapbooks, introducing you to other parts of family, the family reunion, an American institution. Something my grandma typed up years ago. I could read it to you, but I'll go like this. You can pause it and then read it if you want to. The Yule family news. Descendant of Yule, a pet form of Ulrich. Right. The oldest Yule in the world contest. The cutest Yule baby pictures. This is the Rockefeller tradition here, but the Yule tradition. We've been farming humans for the longest time. The voice of 1843 American Yule households. All right. Pretty interesting information. All right. So, anyways, the history of the Yule family in Germany, Northern Europe, and America. German, 9. Okay, does that make me a terrorist? 9, because that makes me like old hail Hitler. And we have some Norwegian in our family bloodline too. But who is the Yule family? All right, family events, human interests. All right, the editorial department. 6 jillion ancestors, the cesspool. All right. So, anyways, this is racketeering. That would be me under the family tree, generation in a pear tree. Partridge in a pear tree. So, anyways, bibliography, biography, fiction, nonfiction. It's up to you to decide on those silly, funny things. Obviously, Los Angeles, a tiny village near San Gabriel, has been named Los Angeles by local Spanish authorities. Most towns, 1781. So heritage, bloodlines, everything else, whether or not I'm actually Albert Einstein solving what general relativity is or not. You can check it out on the old Instagram under Candy's Son. I am the descendant of Candy. Okay. So, anyways, there we go. We'll go for the German vote in Yuleville. And we're on the Elon rocket. And here we were planet hopping. The ridiculous way to travel 250 miles. But, anyways, back when we were planet hopping. Anybody remember when we used to do that stuff? Galaxy hopping, planet hopping. Anyways, the German surname of Yule is, I can't pronounce that word, origin, that is derived from the first name of the mother or father. In this case, Yule is, can't pronounce that word, the first name of Ulrich, Ulrich. So Yule means simply the son of Ulrich or Ulrich. In the Middle Ages, children were given the first name of their father as a surname in order to distinguish them from others. Okay, so there's the history of the Yule name, Germany. Okay, the crest, a man inhabited a shire with pointed cap. The same, holding the hand of volcano, right, surmounted by a star. So again, by a volcano, interesting information. You. But anyways, the coat of arms, Masons, Illuminati, the Yule family, the World Book of Yules, Dear Wayne Yule. I have exciting news for you and fellow Yules, as you may already know. That was my grandpa. Alright, so anyways, people paying attention to themselves, the breeding of themselves, to my knowledge, or I risk nothing. Absolutely not understanding, because if you know, you'd know, and that's how you know. But anyways, family history, Glenn and Minnie, etc., by Audrey Yule. Grandma keeping track, photographs, and history, and making sure we know were not inbred to the Davenports, that were not inbred to Marshall Mathers, that were not inbred to, oh, I don't know, Birdman, what's his name? Brian Williams, etc. Right? So we go through, we got Walter Otto and Catherine Otto, Lawrence and Loretta, Luan Otto, Linda Otto, Minnie Otto, Junita Tillotson, Gerald Tillotson, Geraldine, and then all the descendants going down through to where here I'm named Candy Yule was my mom, K.O., K.O., Candy Yule, O.M.B. Yule, etc. of our family, and how Grandma kept track of our bloodlines and his Ancestry.com version of Ancestry.com. So anyways, here's where we get to how we got to here. And sometimes it takes a condom to prevent it, and sometimes you end up being born wondering why you can't get a job in Black River Falls. But keeping track of which children in what month, and August, September, and all of my cousins and relatives and where they came from, whether it was Sioux City, northeast side of Madison, etc. Glenn Joseph Yule, my grandpa's name was Wayne Joseph Yule. I'm pretty sure that was his dad, and his mom was Minnie. Their maiden name was Otto. So again, just other parts of that ancestry. For anybody trying to figure out how far back it goes, there's Minnie. Do I look like that one? Is that a transgender? Is that a homosexual? Is that a heterosexual? I'm pretty sure that's a female. So there's Minnie and Glenn, my grandma and grandpa's parents, right? Janita, Nita, and Wanda, my grandma and grandpa's sisters. And here's my grandpa as a kid, and that would be my great grandpa, and that's my grandpa. So anyways, the old photo scrapbook of history, back with the old Ford, taking time not to go back and forth with me, says the old pals. Look at that old lawnmower there with the old poop fart motor with the rotary spinning thing that whips grass. So anyways, so there's Glenn as he was getting older on his old corn cob pipe, Sioux City Centennial in 1954. Alright, and then here's where he was here. Glenn Yule, that's part of the Centennial, sitting around the table talks, right? This is something I'm supposed to learn of what I'm supposed to know. Because if you know, then you know. Anyways, there's the kids of his grandpa. That's my grandpa. So this is the kids then grown up. Glenn and Minnie, his parents, to the 5 kids they had. Or 4 kids, etc. Whatever it is, I don't know. Just kind of going along with it, staring at it as I go at it. Alright. Till it's inside. So again, just these different parts of family history. My grandpa and his sisters, Nita and Wanda, and his brother Warren, which is be Butch. These weird little things. So anyways, there they are when they were older. This is a family reunion that was right out here. This is that tree, and this would be that spruce. So here's that oak tree, here's that spruce. So here's that oak tree, here's that spruce. Just a different angle where we had set the chair up. And here's Glenn's funeral and the passing, etc., etc. So for those of you who pay attention to, I got a job, I got a job. Anyways, this is what Grandma would do in her spare time in her mental illness, making sure we knew what we needed to know, making sure we knew what we needed to know. You know what I'm saying, Vern? So anyways, this is the old Walter Otto family, Glenn and Minnie and their side of that old mafia guys, those old city slickers, they were, the greasers back then when they'd slick their hair back, whether it was hair gel or just some spit in their mama's hand, who really knows? Because if you know, then you know. But, yeah, interesting here. That's my mama. My mama. That's her sissy, I think. Anyways, that was my mama. Rest in peace, ma. But here's the old scrapbook again. The Yule Otto family. And my grandma. Just interesting information for those of you getting to know the Owen, the Yule family. Every family reunion we had and those processes. Again, that my grandma took care of it. How she'd keep track of it. Look at all these cutie inbreds we had around here. Should I be attracted to them? No, I can't because they're my family. They're my family. I can't be attracted to them, but I better make sure I know. All right, well, this one lives in Iowa. That one lives in Iowa. They lived in Yankton, South Dakota. That one lived in Iowa. Yeah, you got to pay attention because when you go out into the world on tour and you don't know who these people or these people's kids are, and you think you're finding yourself a cutie out there, this can happen in the black culture, the Asian culture, the Mexican culture. You got to pay attention to your family history because when you go on tour, now some of these people, I don't know, bro. Like some of them, I can't remember. I don't know. I know Jerry. I know Nita, but I don't know that guy. I don't know who that little girl is in her hands. I think that's my cousin Jessica, but I don't know. And so when I go through it, trying to decide, well, when I go on tour, I got to make sure I know these faces, names and faces. Because if these people still live in Yankton, South Dakota, what ends up happening is you end up breeding with them. And you end up finding out it's a distant cousin because you're not paying attention. And they get married and their last name changes and it goes from Yule or Otto into, Poop Fart or Davenport. You never know. You just never know. So when every time you keep track of these family reunions here, and those weird little differences of, where you are or how it could be, you gotta make sure you're not mating with yourself here. Right? So I'm trying to teach Birdman and Georgina Bloomberg and everything. Black Lives Matter, White Lives Matter, whatever else. No, bloodlines matter. And we gotta make sure we don't go inbred. Because when Owen was on tour up on this stage, he was hitting on this little girl down here. Come to find out it was one of his cousins, bro. And sometimes you just don't know. And you gotta find out. Alright, so this is the reason you have scrapbooks, and it would be very important for a lot of people to maybe spend a Christmas, spend a Thanksgiving, spend some time together, spend a Hanukkah together, and get the old pictures together and start to memorize these faces on how, pretty my own mama was. There I was, picking my nose, chewing it, picking up my nose and chewing it. Okay, but anyways, there's my mom, my grandpa, grandma, the family history. And again, I just got to make sure I don't know who that cutie is. I could go on tour. She could show up and say, "Hey, how you doing?" And I can say, "Hey, how are you?" And you end up breeding with them. And you got to be careful because later on you find out that was my grandpa's brother's daughter. Can't do that, Owen. There she is again. What a cutie. Well, can't breed with that one. You got to be careful, you guys. You got to keep track of your family. And when you start to find out that their name was Otto and not Yule, hey, you got to memorize that stuff too. Hey, I can't breed with that one. What's your last name? So, anyways, that's how it is. That's how it is. There I was with somebody I don't even know. And I don't even think I was old enough to breed with this one. But now you know. Alright, so anyways, this is what we call a cesspool, what leads you into inbreeding. And when you keep track of your family history, when you keep track of your scrapbooks, you gotta know. I could be on the stage with Kasky right now, and all these old ladies show up and say, "Hey, Owen, how's it going?" And I'm like, "Hey, maybe I want to breed with you." And she's like, "You can't. You're my cousin." She's like, hey, I want to breed with you. You can't. I'm her sister, which makes you a cousin. And you just can't do it. You know what I'm saying? So you got to find out whether or not they're still cute. Are they still cute? Yeah, I'd hit on that one. Can't. I can't. It was my aunt. Wasn't even a cousin. You got to figure it out. And this is where we get the vocabulary. Now you have aunts, cousins, brothers, and sisters. And this is how we got the vocabulary of the Yule family reunion in Sioux City, Iowa of 1987, the year after I was born. There's mommy, and I was only one at that time. So, anyways, when we keep going through the process of what the process will be, of how you know, is how you find out. All right, and here's back to it. Wow, look at that. Here's the cabin I'm sitting. I'm sitting right where that cooler is right now. Here's that window. And then here's the family history of how long we've had the cabin. I'm sitting where that cooler is right now. And here's us in our Yule shirts for the Yule family reunion. And so here's the history and the legacy of what my grandpa built of this cabin, which has now been my home for the past 15 years. The longevity of my daughter's life. And we're pretty much just hanging out, telling the scrapbook story of the family reunions and how you make sure you don't go inbred. Now, I didn't get in any trouble for this, but when you keep track of this stuff, you want to make sure one of these cute cousins or something like that, when you're on tour, when you're touring with Eminem or Drake or Lil Wayne, hey, I might see this cutie in the audience or that cutie in the audience. Hey, can't breed with you. You're my cousin. We'll end up going back inbred. And that's why this is important to talk about. So I'm going through my grandma's mental illness right now of what family history would be, scrapbooking her mental illness of keeping track of the Yules. And if you put a Yule on there and a Yule on there and a Yule on there and you all fucking with glue, you start to figure out your family. Can't breed with any of them. And you got to learn the hard way. This is where you start to enter the mental illness phase. All right. And if you take a look, you'd see them chickens. Look at all them chickens. Anyways, here's the camper that I started OmoneyRecords with, that they started this cabin with. This is what they lived out of while they built this building. If you go through the other live videos on YouTube, going through the other scrapbook videos, this is the camper my grandma and grandpa stayed in with their 5 children. This tiny little camper with their 5 children as they built this cabin. This cabin here. I'm sitting right here, right now, talking to you. And so this is back in what, 87 or 88? This is back when it was just drywall. Here's a big window there, which is right over there. There's the big window inside the cabin on that side. So anyways, back when it was just drywall, before there was any paneling over it. Here's the cupboards. Anybody know these cupboards that's been in my house? Here's when it was just drywall. Still being finished off. Alright, guys. So here's the window right here. I'm sitting outside right here where my thumb is. This is that side of the window right there. That's that side, but from the inside. Fancy, fancy. So getting to know us, as I was anxiously await for another family reunion, taken back to when I was a little girl, the memories of my grandparents, Glenn and Minnie. And so this is told by Teresa Ambrose Ackerberg. Now this is family down in Iowa. Again, if I go on tour, this is Davenport, Sioux City, Iowa. All right, I got to make sure when I'm on tour, if I'm in Sioux City or Davenport, I'm not really sure if I can breed with that Ambrose or Ackerberg because they're family. And just because their last name changes to, I don't know, Carter or Smith or Poop Fart, doesn't mean you can poop with a fart because it might end up being your family. And you got to keep track of that stuff. So as I'm teaching everybody in these weird little ways of how you stay from inbreeding, or again, if you want to be a purebred inbred, that's up to you. But I guess it's not legal. So pay attention. Because again, last name changes, your last name changes. Because when people get married, it changes from you to Ambrose, etc. You never know. And here's when we got first place at our own family reunion because we made the ribbon ourselves to give ourselves first place, just like you would a Grammy, just like you would a plaque from MTV. But it's called a ribbon. And I guess somehow we gave ourselves a ribbon to tell ourselves we deserve to know we won first place as ourselves. And it becomes a really interesting thing when people go out there and they play badminton or volleyball and they're just trying to lose some weight. That's all they were doing. They were drunk. They were drinking beer. They were just trying to lose some weight. You know what I'm saying? So, just interesting data. Look at that old playpen compared to how they are nowadays. But back at her, this is down in Iowa, I think, doing the old three-legged race, the old sack hop. You know, it's a pretty interesting thing. If anybody remembers the old gunny sacks for potatoes, people used to do that with the three-legged race or the gunny sack race. Put both legs in a sack or a plastic bag, and you try and jump as fast as you can and win a race from point A to point B from start to finish. So these are the games that you play, that you do, and you give children to do. Super simple, super fun. Doesn't have to be crazy. It could be a volleyball, could be a baseball, could be badminton, could be croquet, could just be a plastic bag, and you see how far you can jump without falling down with both your feet in the bag. So, anyways, there I was, sitting on Death Row's chair, pimping it. What up, Snoop? I'm sitting in Death Row's chair right now, dog. Dog on a balsa wood, man. Don't make me dip on you, bro. This is the family history of making sure that when Owen, sitting there with Death Row, goes on tour, doesn't breed with any of these people because he's related to them. And that's the importance of scrapbooking, ladies and gentlemen. So, anyways, here we are. Just a bunch of random people you guys don't know on YouTube and you guys don't know on Instagram or Facebook, but that's my Uncle Jerry. He was a pretty funny guy. And there's Bam. Hey. Look at how fucking trashed he was. He was fucking two under the bag. Oh, yeah. Sometimes they come out inbred. You never know, Jessica. Anyways, that old cocaine cowboy, you never know. You never know. Hey, Jamie, that old Italian mafia side, what are you guys doing over there? Hey, look, there's Jeffrey Dahmer and Bill Gates. Steve and Alex. Just kidding, guys. Just kidding. Bad sense of humor. Anyways, again, oh, there's a cutie. I might end up hitting on her while I'm on tour. There I am going on tour. She came to my show. Hey, cutie, wanna breed with me? Wanna have a kid? Can't. I'm your cousin. Did you remember me? I better remember. All right, so let's just stop. Let's just sit down and have a cig for a second. Let's put that old blue T-shirt on. And what I'd like everybody to do when I go on tour is go get some copies of these made. So when I am on tour and I know who I'm breeding with, having an egotistical mindset of being able to hang out with whatever groupie I want to make sure I know which one's my family. Maybe we'll just document it with a fancy gold sticker that says 1990. All right. So as we go through these processes and my comedic relief, letting everybody know what the family was, making banners, sitting underneath, band shelter. It says number 3 on it. 1, 3, whatever it is. Yeah, you end up sitting on a picnic table, and you cover the picnic table with a cloth, and you set your cup on it, and you realize you could spend $85,000 on granite or marble, or you could just buy yourself a picnic table and throw a piece of plastic over it and throw a red Solo cup on it and call it a house, and you could save a shit ton of money on car insurance by switching to Geico. Anyways, when you go through the process of what the blood of Christ would be in that red Solo cup, whether it's a beer, wine, milk, or soda, again, you can set that plastic cup down on this piece of cloth here, this piece of plastic, to prevent you spilling beer, flies, bugs, ants getting into your family reunion food. You learn to realize you could go spend money on granite countertops, marble, and put it into a fancy house in Beverly Hills. And when you set that red Solo cup down, it doesn't matter if it's milk, wine, soda, or beer. It'll still taste the same because the granite doesn't transfer up through the cup. The marble doesn't transfer up through the cup. Okay, the wood, whether it's 2x6, 2x4s, doesn't transfer up through the cup. You can set that cup anywhere, and the milk, the wine, the water, or the soda will taste the same. Why even buy a house in Beverly Hills when you could just buy a picnic table with a band shelter and set your cup down and say, you know what, I saved myself over $6 million, $21 million by not buying Drake's house. Yep, it could be way simpler. And you know what's going to taste the same? The soda, the wine, the milk, or the water. And you don't have to spend that money, and you don't have to be jealous about it. It'll be okay, guys. But anyways, back to it. Look, another cutie, man. I gotta be careful. Can't do it. I can't go on tour. I can't mate with that one. That's a cousin too. Want to know how I know? The scrapbooking of this being a family reunion, making it family. Yep, that could be a dangerous road, but I'm glad. I'm gonna memorize her face. I'm gonna blink my eyes 3 or 4 times. Okay, got it memorized. Can't mate with that one. She's in my family reunion scrapbook. And that's the importance of these things, of documenting history and how we got to here. The Rockefeller family, the Bloomberg family. Doesn't that look like David Rockefeller there? Junior? Senior? Can't remember. Anyways, no, we're the Yule family. We're not Rockefellers. It's far off. It's a completely different last name. We are nowhere near related to Rockefellers, but I might try and breed with one just to be sure. Which again, we'll find out if we're inbred. And sometimes when you fuck around and find out, that's how you know. You know what I'm saying? As we go through this process of every little part of memorizing faces and taking black and white pictures, making sure we know. Because that's how you know. You understand what I'm saying, Vern? Anyways, yep, I can't breed with that one. That's my cousin, Chrissy, I guess. I mean, I better memorize that face. She was a kid when I was a kid, and I remember her name. I remember her face, but I haven't seen her. I don't know where she's living. She could be California or Iowa or New Hampshire. Who knows? If I go on tour and I see that one, I better remember. Can't mate with that one. All right. So as we're going through this process here, the Yule reunion of '91, now my grandma would document this stuff. All right. And there they were on an old Ford 910 tractor with the trailer. All right, you guys recognize the side of this right out here? You see the side with the bent. My grandpa built that trailer. We zoom back out. You see the bent. It's the same trailer. This is back in 1991, June 2nd, at the family reunion. And my grandpa restored this tractor. He restored it, bought it, restored it, painted it, made it go poop. You know, he made it run. It said brum 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 brum. But anyways, this is the old family history of back when Jamie was on CBS, I guess. Can't remember. Ooh, orbs, really trippy acid stuff. Orbs, lighting, those old fancy cameras when we thought we'd see ghosts or extraterrestrials. All right. But here we go, back to the old cabin. I'm sitting right here, right now, talking to you. That's my mom, and there was me. All the way back then in 1991. And here's the odd history. This oak tree, here's Grandpa, and here's this tripod and a camera. That's my grandpa, and here's this weird oak tree. That's this oak tree right here. That's this oak tree right here back in '91. So, into legacy, this tree wasn't actually even planted yet. And there was a pine tree next to it with the sandbox. That pine tree is now gone. It fell down in a storm. We cut it out, pulled the stump out. All right. But anyways, this is just a little bit of family history. Here's the steps right here and 2 trees. And this is what I'm going to teach you about time in 1991. This is how big these trees were. 1, 2. All right, you see 1 stump, 2 stumps, and these steps right here. I'll take a second and set down my scrapbook. Here's the steps I got right here. And we walk over to it. And here's the 1 and 2. And if I spent the time counting the rings, and I can't because they got so old now. Now this is counted the rings on some of these. We got a 285 years before they rotted out and got to the point of needing to cut down. Now they weren't quite ready yet. They were still alive, but they were getting so top heavy that the concern of it landing on the house would be what that is. So there's the 2 trees, and there's those steps. Right. Now I have this here for my bike ramp at the moment because I ride my bike during the day. Just hanging out as I'm getting the house ready to sell and going through these memories. Getting the cabin ready to sell. There's the 2 trees, and there's those steps, and my bike ramps right there to put my bike back in the house. But again, this is '91. This is how skinny they were. If you just saw the stumps, again, they were probably out to here by that point. So this is, you add, I'm 40 years old onto what 91 was and how old these trees were to when you cut them down and harvest them. I counted the rings on these trees, 285. 285. So anyways, 285 years. So anyways, or maybe it was 185, sorry. But anyways, back to the family reunion. The ones you don't want to breed with. When Owen right there on the bench goes on tour. Maybe I'll never go on tour, who knows? And I'll never have to worry about it. Because if you never go on tour, you don't have to worry about breeding with yourself. But this is what my grandma used to do in her mental illness. Keep track of life. Keep track of the family. The Yule family news. She'd spend typing up what everybody was doing. Darren was now the new owner of a condo by Madison's beautiful lakes. Candy was a new owner of a trailer home. Trailer park I rocked. People think I'm crazy because I smoke a little pot, did a little meth, took a couple drops. Stealing porn from your pops. Yeah, well, that's how it happens. And, again, in a family reunion, you don't want to steal the nudes of your cousins and your sisters and your nieces and nephews. You do not want to steal the nudes of your cousins, sisters, nieces, and nephews. Because in reality, when you steal porn from your pops or your cousins, you end up going inbred and you're masturbating to the wrong person, guys. You gotta pay attention to that type of stuff. So just letting the police department know and all the hackers know out in the world, be careful whose computer you hack because you might end up masturbating to one of your cousins. And just because they have a different last name and it teases your brain doesn't make it right. All right. So to all the hackers out there and whoever wheel is in my desktop, you better pay attention. You might be beating off to your own cousin, niece, or nephew, or sister, or brother. And this is why this is so important to pay attention to. But anyways, back to the scrap side of where I'm trying to bitch slap some pretty evil people who bitch slapped me. And there's my grandma and grandpa. There they were, hanging out. That old gangster and their 5 kids. Alright, there's my mama. That's my mama. Alright, there's my mama. There's my mama. I think she looks as beautiful as Haley Lou on this military girl that has pretty brunette hair. And she's a calendar girl with Eric and Donald Trump. But anyways, there's the family. There's my mama wearing makeup. Back when she was a little bit saner before the domestic abuse of specific male figures. Alright. So anyways, this is the old scrapbook. And then we get to the point where Grandpa's obituary. My grandpa that passed, he raised me from 12 and up. And the descendants. Owen Yule. It says own Yule. Own. I guess they own me. Own Yule. But my grandpa's nickname was Bud. Hey, Bud. How's it going? That was his nickname. So anyways, he built the shed aquarium. He was a plant manager, Zoc Joseph, Steel Fabricators. Built the shed aquarium, built MATC, built the Dane County Coliseum, built a lot of stuff. Alright, and he was born in Yankton, South Dakota. So we came from Yankton, South Dakota, and we went down to Sioux City and Davenport, and then we came up to Madison, and now I'm in Black River Falls, so we made a U. And our descendants coming from Germany, again, which we start in the front of that scrapbook. So when you pay attention to where you've been, where you started, and again, Grandpa was in Yankton, South Dakota, now he came here, you got to pay attention. You go on tour, you can end up breeding with yourself, and just because your last name changes doesn't mean it's not your family. All right. There's Owen and his mama. There's his mama. All right. Interesting information. Interesting information. The other family members, the old redheads, the old, she can get away with whatever she wants. There they are. If you'd look at it, you'd know. Because I guess he was a rock, a feller. Oh no, that's hard rock. Hard Rock Cafe, but back where he used to sing opera. He used to sing with Clay Aiken and Betty Crocker and some of those other ones. Congratulations, there he was, a Yule, promoted to commercial banking. I don't know. I guess that's that old banking cartel. Stay away from that guy. He believes in interest. He believes in interest payments. He likes extra money. Don't trust that guy. All right. So that's an uncle. Here's Craig. Craig, an LGBTQ member. I'm not sure which way he swung, but that's his boyfriend. These are the LGBTQ members of the family. I support LGBTQ, but I don't support LGBTQ. I support it because I have uncles, but I am not myself LGBTQ. It is a little different, but I support them because I have uncles that are LGBTQ to anybody that knows. And so, again, no hate. There's no hate crimes. It's whether it's support or acceptance. I accept I have LGBTQ uncles and they exist, but I myself am not LGBTQ. So going through this, why should I put them on blast? Because that's what pride is. They were prideful. All right. So anyways, back to it. Here's my Uncle Butch. That was my grandpa's brother. He was in Vietnam. He served time. All right, he served his time. He was in Vietnam War. He stepped on a landmine, got shot. He's got shrapnel in him. He can only turn his neck a little bit left, a little bit right. All right, he was in Vietnam. And after he got shrapnel in him, my grandma had to write a letter, or wrote a letter, chose to write the letter to get him out of the service after he had shrapnel in him so he wouldn't have to continue in the war. When he came back and got sewed up, they were trying to get him to go back at that time. So anyways, different parts of these pieces. So here we go. Butch Warren Ewell, 20, who was seriously wounded in action in Vietnam, October 1st, and returned to the United States and hospitalized in the Irwin Hospital building, Fort Riley. All right, Glenn Ewell, there's those names again, just so you know. At Camp Zama in Japan prior to the return to the United States, and stepped on a landmine. Had shrapnel in his body, served real blood, sweat, and tears. You know, happy Memorial Day, Labor Day. Memorial Day to those veterans that we have. I have one, served his time, came back, survived. All right, a lucky one. One of the lucky ones that survived it with real metal in his body. He goes through metal detectors and stuff, and they go beep, beep, beep at the airport type thing. So, anyways, just a little bit of family history. And here was Butch back in Sioux City, Iowa. SC, Sioux City, Iowa, not South Carolina, Iowa. Sioux City, Iowa. Anyways, that was then we came from Yankton. Grandma and Grandpa's parents came from Yankton. That's my grandpa's brother. This is when they moved to Sioux City. And then later on in life, we moved to Madison, Wisconsin. And now I have moved up here to Black River Falls. So, my plan now is to potentially go to Hawaii or somewhere else and try and breed with the Polynesian or something else, so that way I don't get trapped inbred with the Davenport congregations and the Suter congregations, who also have families, because I'm catching their same relatives up here who brought them back to their relatives down there, in which if we end up breeding with each other too many times, we're going to get stuck inbred, and it's a scary thing. And I need my unemployment, you guys, and this is why we have to keep track of that stuff. But anyways, there's Butch in his old military outfit, acting as G.I. Joe, my grandpa's brother. There he was. That's about as far as he could turn his neck after this. And the shrapnel in his head, that's about as far as he could turn his head. And those are his kids. Alright, Uncle Butch. Fancy, neat little stuff. But as times change, and those that you remember, shout out to my cousin, Ken, we can't breed cousin. But shout out to Megan, one of my favorite cousins. Keeps track of my life as I keep track of her life, as grandma and our parents and descendants kept track of us. So again, this is just another scrapbook for the day. Close to an hour as we finish this. little journey here and letters to our own cousins and nieces and nephews. Diane, and who is this? Jerry. Letter from Butch, etc. And so what we're doing now is we're separating ourselves back to that same progress of what that would be. And it's interesting. Interesting information. But anyways, the family union. Anybody remember that old Paper Towns minivan? There it is. An old Paper Towns minivan, right? Well, that's not quite it. Kind of like it. There's that old three-legged potato sack race. And when you have a good partnership, good family, good trust and values, good hand-eye coordination, you can win a race. You can get out there and you can teach them. You got 3 legs. And if you got 3 legs because you're inbred, you're going to get there anyways. Sometimes inbred people come out with 3 legs. Sometimes they got cleft lip, but it's okay. Because if you got good hand-eye coordination and you got 3 legs, you'll figure out how to get there. Anyways, here's the old family to prevent ourselves from going inbred. And what we used to do, is we had a tradition, family tradition. We have this chicken we made. It's filled with sequins and sparkles. Okay, and so the Yule family reunion and the chicken side of what that chicken was, and I can't remember what it was exactly, but I think each family that bred a new child would take the chicken and have the chicken and the egg, and every time a different cousin or whatever else of the chicken heirloom, we would pass it on each year at the family reunions to any new family that would breed a new child. And it was the heirloom for 1 year until the next year family reunion. And then whoever else had a new kid, we'd pass it on to them, and you just hang it on your wall. And we call it a family tradition, the chicken heirloom. That's what we used to do. And again, not like it matters to those of you in public, but it's just an interesting thing to understand. And so, all the different names, and Grandma was trying to catch up from everything we did up to that point, and birthdays, and etc. She was a hard-working lady. She kept track of that stuff. Mentally ill or not, it was her mental illness. Mentally ill or not, scrapbooking and taking care of family was her mental illness as a mother, a grandmother, and my legal guardian. All right, ladies and gentlemen, so back to her. That's the end of the scrapbook for the day. I'm going to do one other video here in a little bit, probably tomorrow, and we'll go through my resume. Maybe, maybe not. The new resume, the old resume, but that was just a glimpse of the family reunion, American institution of people that try not to be inbred. Have a good day, ladies and gentlemen.